Hi students, I wanted to create this video just to give you another way to review this material. I know genetics is not the easiest thing to learn and there is a lot of new vocabulary that I am throwing at you, and I'm sorry I have to do that, but I just want to help you in any way possible, so I'm hoping that this video will help you review some of the notes that maybe you did not understand in class. So we're going to start with this first slide. I'm sure you remember it. So our new unit is on genetics. And genetics, in the simplest way possible, if you explain it, it's the study of something called heredity. And heredity is how traits are passed from parent to offspring. And remember, offspring is another word for a fancy word for babies. And so you can see here's the mom and dad dogs, and it's a study of how their traits or characteristics, like their fur color or eye shape or nose shape, get passed on to their children, which is right here. Okay? All right, let's move on. All right, so the study of heredity started with this scientist called Gregor Mendel, and he was an Austrian monk. He lived in the 1800s, and he studied heredity through pea plants. And because he was a monk and he actually had a garden at his monastery, he actually had a lot of time to sit and really closely study these pea plants, and you can see this is kind of the things that he observed. He really paid attention to detail, and he noticed that not all pea plants were the same. Even though they were the same species, they're not all the same. So you can see the seed color might be yellow or green, the flower color might be purple or white. Look at the pod shape. Some of them might be bumpy, some of them might be smooth. The pod color might be yellow or green. Even the position of flowers, some of them were in the middle, some of them were at the top, and some of them were really tall, some of them were short. So he really wondered where and how all these differences came about. So he decided to do a couple of different experiments. I'm just going to show you one experiment, and that was with the flowers. So what he did was he decided to crossbreed a purple flower and a white flower. And when he crossed them, this is what he got. He got 100% all purple flowers. And why did you think this happened? Why did the white trait not show up? And he wondered the same thing. He didn't really understand. But he decided to investigate further. So he took two of these here, and he decided to crossbreed these and see what would happen. So when he did that, let's see. Okay, so he took two of those purple plants and he crossbred them, and this is what he got. He got 75% of them purple and 25% white. And he tried this multiple times and he got the same results every single time. And this led him to realize that there was a mathematical way of calculating and predicting certain traits and when they reappear. Okay, so let's keep going. Now I'm going to skip that. So why was Mendel so important? Well, back then when Mendel was working, he didn't really know that much about DNA. There wasn't that much technology to know what DNA looked like yet. But he knew that there were certain factors that accounted for how peas looked. And he called them factors, but today we know them as genes. And it helped people realize that factors and traits are passed down through parents to offspring, and now we know they're passed down on chromosomes. And here's a picture of a chromosome, and you can see, remember the term homologous pair? Homologous means the same, and so these are a homologous pair of chromosomes because they're similar in size and shape. And you get one from mom and one from dad. Remember, we have 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes for a total of 46 chromosomes. I'm sorry, not pairs. All right. So let's look more closely at these chromosomes, okay? So If you look really closely at chromosomes, they can be divided up into these little sections called genes. And if you remember the Bill Nye video, a gene is a really specific part of a chromosome that codes for a specific trait. So for example, there's a blue gene, and this one might be for flower color. The green gene might be for the seed color. This red gene here, it might be for plant height. This purple gene here, it might be for if the seed is wrinkled or smooth, and so on and so forth. So every single section on a chromosome has different parts, different genes, and genes can code for different traits. All right, so let's move on. Now, oops. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so not all genes are the same. And this is where it might get it confusing because there's a whole bunch of vocabulary coming. So there's this thing called alleles. And alleles are the different forms of a gene. Okay, so we know that these are genes, right? Well, these genes contain different forms. There's actually 2 alleles for every gene. You remember, you get one from mom, one from dad. So there's 2 alleles, and these alleles are different forms of the same gene. So let's say you can see here, okay, this is the flower color gene. It's located right here, right across from each other. You can see, let's say the purple one is mom's. The mom's allele is for white flowers, and dad's is the allele for purple flowers. So you can see they're different, but they're for the same gene. They're for the flower color gene. So we call these different forms of a gene alleles. All right, let's keep going. Now, there's 2 different kinds of alleles, okay? There's something called a dominant allele, and there's one called recessive allele. And the dominant one is kind of, if you think of the word dominating, it's the one that takes over. It always wants to be in the spotlight. It's the allele that's always expressed, and it actually covers other alleles. So it masks other alleles. So, and the recessive allele is the allele that's only shown when the dominant one is not present. So for example, if you look at the research that Mendel did for the pea plants, the purple color is dominant and the white color is recessive. And we know this because when he crossed purple and white, it created 4 purple flowers and it masked the white color. So the purple color is dominant. Now, there's a specific way that scientists write about alleles, okay? Now, they use different letters. It doesn't really matter what letters they are, just know that they're letters of the alphabet, and they're supposed to represent different genes and alleles, okay? Now, if the letter is uppercase, it means it's a dominant allele. If the letter is lowercase, it means it's recessive. And together, they make a 2-letter code called a genotype. So for example, okay, see there's a homologous pair of chromosomes here, one from mom, one from dad, right? And let's say this is the location of one gene. Let's say this one's for the flower color, okay? The allele from mom is dominant, so it's an uppercase B. The allele from dad is recessive, so it's a lowercase b. And together here, they make a genotype of big B, little b, okay? If you look over here, it's a similar deal. There's a recessive lowercase a here, recessive allele for mom, recessive allele for dad. So the genotype here is little a. And here it's dominant allele from mom, dominant allele from dad. So the genotype of this gene is going to be big P, big P. All right. So again, the genotype is the 2-letter code that represents the alleles. There's another term called phenotype. Phenotype, physical, try to make that connection, phenotype, physical. So the physical appearance that results from this genotype here is called a phenotype. So let me give you an example. So the genotype for blue eyes and the genotype for brown eyes is different. Brown eyes is dominant to blue eyes. So big B is dominant to little b, okay? So the genotype here is going to be big B, little b, or big B, because if there's a dominant gene, it's going to See, this one's, it's brown, not brown blue, because the dominant will take over the blue. It's dominating, right? Here, it's little b, it's blue. The phenotype is blue because there's no dominant gene. So you can see if there's two little b's, it's recessive. The phenotype will be the recessive. If there's a dominant in the genotype, then the phenotype or the physical appearance will also be dominant. So that's how those two things are related. So let me review. The genotypes helps us understand the phenotype. If there's a dominant allele in the genotype, like big B, little b, the phenotype will have the dominant trait expressed, like brown eyes. If there's no dominant allele in the genotype, then the phenotype will have the recessive trait expressed. So you can see it's blue eyes here. Okay? And we're almost done. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated, but it's understandable. Let's see. So genotypes, remember genotypes are the two-letter codes? The genotypes can be homozygous or heterozygous. Think about the prefix homo and hetero. Homo means the same, hetero means different. You saw the homologous has the prefix homo. Homologous means the same chromosome, homologous chromosome. So when you see homozygous, you can think the same. So if genotypes are homozygous, that means the copies of the allele are the same. So you can see big R, little r, little r. You can see each copy here, they're the same. So they're called homozygous. Heterozygous, on the other hand, is when there's two different alleles. For example, big R, little r. Okay? You can see here, here's another heterozygous example, big B, little b. That's heterozygous. Here you can see this is homozygous, little a for recessive. This is big P, homozygous dominant. Okay, so just know that these terms refer to if the copies of the allele are the same or different. Okay, so let me go over the practice questions that we did in class. All right, this is just review. All right, so a purple P is dominant to white. How would you represent homozygous dominant? It's big P because homozygous means the same alleles and dominant means the dominant allele. So it's uppercase P, uppercase P. Similarly, homozygous recessive, remember homozygous means the same alleles, recessive means lowercase. So it's lowercase p, lowercase p. And here, heterozygous means different alleles. So you can see it's uppercase P, lowercase p. Okay? Now, I know this was a lot of information, but I'm hoping that this screencast will help you review. Please listen to it as many times as you need to review, especially for the new vocabulary terms. And it really helps to have these visuals, and explaining it with the visuals helps too. So just make sure, if you're not sure about something, watch this again, or you can ask me in class. I'll try to clarify as much as I can. But for the unit on genetics, these words will be very, very important, because if you don't know these words, for the next section, it will be even harder. So make sure that you brush up on these words and that you're really understanding what these mean, so that when we go on to the next lesson, it will be easier for you to understand. Okay? Thanks so much, and keep up the great work, guys. Bye.